I've heard from a lot of students this semester that are very upset about being asked to show their work. And I've also heard from a lot of students that are upset because there are small penalties when you place an answer for your online homework that is incorrect, i.e., that you're not allowed an infinite number of attempts on your homework problems. So, first and foremost, last thing I want to do is upset people, and I'm sorry that you're upset. I really am. However, I genuinely love the idea that online instruction can reach more people. It can make education more possible for more people. That's awesome. However, what I don't want is for people to pay lots of money and put lots of time into degrees that over time are not considered as rigorous as in-person instruction. And so you don't have to believe me, but I ask that you give me the benefit of the doubt here that I've been a student of physics and a teacher of physics for now almost 30 years. And so I have a sense of what physics curriculum looks like. And I do think that there are some discrepancies between what is now expected of an online physics course and how physics courses typically take place in person. And again, while there's not going to be a perfect one-to-one correspondence between online physics instruction and in-person physics instruction, I do believe it is out of respect for you and your grade and the degree you're pursuing and the ultimate diploma that you get that you are treated to the same standards as students that are taking these courses in person. And so I just want to take a few moments to kind of address some of, I think, maybe the different perceptions that I've seen about things like showing your work and homework versus what is very often the case in not only in-person instruction, but talking to other colleagues doing things online. Things like showing your work are actually very common. So, for example, when it comes to homework, there are definitely some students that believe that homework is an opportunity to explore without any sort of grade penalty, that ultimately you should get an infinite number of tries and get perfect scores on all your homeworks. And I'm guessing that that's because how some other online classes have been set up, and I respect another instructor's autonomy to set homework up in that way. But in a class like physics, where you could literally take a given problem and think of an infinite number of other ways in which you could phrase the problem, because you could think of all the parameters and all the different numbers you can make those parameters. Physics is about giving students opportunities to practice problems so that they can understand the conceptual underpinnings behind those problems and then be able to transfer that conceptual understanding to a new problem that they haven't seen precisely exactly worked out for them. You can't just regurgitate what you've already been shown in physics. You have to learn how to solve something new based upon what you have gleaned from the previous problems that you've worked on. And so homework is very much designed to prepare students for the exams. And this means trying to thoughtfully and carefully work on homework problems. So when homework is instead set up so that you just get an infinite number of tries until you get the correct answer, unfortunately, what will happen, and time logs of student answer submissions absolutely suggest this. I've worked with Pearson and with HonorLock. I've worked with their technical support teams. I wanted to make sure that the data that they present is accurate. When you look at this data, there are absolutely cases where students will just cycle through each possible answer choice until they arrive at the correct answer. That's not preparing you for an exam. That's getting you a right answer in the moment, but it's doing little to nothing in terms of your conceptual understanding of physics progressing. And so the idea is that I do want students to get multiple chances. And this is one thing that's very different. There's not like a single class that I ever took as a physics student or a class that I've taught as a physics professor where when you do your homework, you write down all the work behind the answers that you submit and you turn the homework in. You don't get to turn the homework in 100 times. You turn your homework in by the due date, and then your homework gets graded. And so you're not only showing your work, but you essentially get one try. And so I think that first and foremost, we're doing more than that with the online offerings by giving students multiple tries. But we're also trying to thread the needle of giving people multiple opportunities, but not incentivizing students to just haphazardly just cycle through every possible answer choice and arrive at the correct answer, because that's not helping. And in fact, that's going to hurt you when it comes to exams. And so it's trying to find that sweet spot between giving you multiple chances, which actually is not typically the norm in a lot of physics instruction, versus making sure that while you get multiple chances, that you're thoughtful and careful and deliberate in the answer choices that you submit. And so I very much hope that you can understand that I do want to give you multiple chances, but unfortunately, when you give unlimited chances, it ends up making things such that students are actually disservicing themselves in terms of preparing for the exams. I know not all students do this, but unfortunately, there are enough that do, that this very much is an issue if you just give unlimited attempts. So you might not agree with me, but that's my rationale behind why I do give multiple chances, but at the same time, not unlimited chances. Now, when it comes to showing work, so this is a thing that I think is very, very, very important to address because, and again, you might not believe me, but I say this based on my experience of nearly 3 decades now. When you arrive at physics answers, very rarely does it just pop into your head. Very rarely does a number just arrive in your head. Sometimes there's questions that are phrased in ways where you can kind of think about it and choose one or the other. But certainly a problem where you have to arrive at a numerical solution, that requires you to put the pen to paper and go through conceptual and mathematical reasoning. You have to work through a chain of reasoning, doing these particular symbolic manipulations of these physics ideas and these mathematical principles to arrive at an answer that you ultimately submit for credit. In this class, I am now asking that the students show the work behind those answers. I am not grading students on the work itself. This is actually different than in-person instruction, where often you get graded on the work itself. I didn't want to have additional assignments given to students during the course. And so what I've been asking is that students merely show the work they have supposedly already been doing, because that's the idea, is that when you're getting credit for an answer, the idea is that it doesn't come from nowhere, that you've arrived at that answer, that you've gone through conceptual and mathematical reasoning to arrive at that answer. And so what I'm merely asking is that if you're doing this to arrive at an answer, which is what is typically required when you're doing physics, then you just simply hold it up to show it. You're not doing anything additional. You're just showing what you did to arrive at the answer that you get credit for. And so that's the rationale behind showing work. And based on communications with students, it appears that some students think that it's unfair that there needs to be work shown behind the answers that are submitted. And so this is a place where we have to respectfully agree to disagree, because I truly do believe that many physics problems are problems that you need to actually go through some conceptual and mathematical reasoning to arrive at the answer you submit for credit. And I want to see the work behind the answers that the students are submitting for credit. We have a new era of online education where a lot more of the assessments and ways in which students get credit for things is by submitting answers online. And so we are moving away from an era where you do all of your work and you turn it in once. That's definitely not going to be the perception of a lot of physics students moving forward as to what physics looks like. And I understand that, and I understand it's based upon other online classes that people might have taken. But I just kindly ask that you at least can give me the benefit of the doubt that the particular views I have on showing your work and my views on homework and the function of homework and why homework shouldn't always just be considered something that you should always just get 100% on with infinite tries. those perspectives of mine very much come from a genuine commitment to try and make physics instruction online very similar to the rigor of physics instruction in person. And the idea there is, once again, I very much respect that people are paying a lot of money and people are putting a lot of time into online education. And so I think it would be a shame if over time, certain employers, for example, if they learn that an applicant did their degree online, that they wouldn't look as favorably of that applicant as someone that they knew did their studies in person. I don't want that for our online students.